there's this big push. Everyone knows entrepreneurship through acquisition. What's not talked about is franchise through acquisition, or even entrepreneurship through franchising. So what I did is I essentially said, hey, I'm looking for a great business that I could replicate in every market by finding great franchisees to run that. And instead of acquiring that business, that founder now leaves, and now I'm running a $2 million power washing business. I'm saying, hey, keep running your great $2 million power washing business. Let's create another business. We're going to give you upside in this brand new business that you didn't have before because you've built this great business. I need your help making sure that we can transfer the knowledge that you have sufficiently. So let's partner in this new business. That new business acquires the systems, processes, rights, trademarks, anything that has or will be created by that business. And now we're a franchisor. And so now we are in the business of helping people start businesses.
So last time we recorded and had you on the pod, you told us about your franchise that you're building, the Rolling Suds franchise, in a really interesting format. Basically, to summarize it, you spent your career in franchises. Mm-hmm. You found a business owner, maybe a group of business owners that had started a very successful business called Rolling Suds. Mm-hmm. And then you said, hey, look, you guys have one location, very successful, amazing brand. Yep. Why don't we partner, and I'm going to grow this to the U.S. or wherever, maybe the whole world, and we're going to actually become a franchisor. Yep. And that's what you've been up to. It sounds like you have over 70 franchisees now.
77 franchisees that own 255 territories. We took the brand to market almost exactly 2 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been
you're
wild.
Sprinting.
Yeah, it's been wild.
Are you on a plane a lot? Or are you having to?
Yeah, just a little bit more than I'm enjoying at this point in terms of the amount of travel, but it's necessary. We go to these conferences and I'm very involved in the franchise community. I'm very engaged in kind of what we're doing and sharing it online and stuff like that. And I think there's just a huge opportunity for the franchise community and the ETA kind of SMB Twitter community to really blend.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of made that a priority of mine going into this year, and even last year going to Main Street Summit, and how do we kind of figure out how we could all work together? Because honestly, the franchise industry, it's a massive part of our gross domestic product, but most people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity to change that.
Did I see that one of your franchisees was power washing the New Orleans stadium?
Yeah, the dome. We power washed the dome to get it ready for the big game.
That's cool. That must have been a big contract.
It was, and they thought it was gray, and we turned it white. So it was it was gray before we got up there.
I was like, they painted it gray. Turns out it's not.
Yeah, so we were up there rappelling down, doing this huge project, and those franchisees were only 9 months into operation when we got that job.
How did they land that? Did they know a contact?
So they hustled really hard. Yeah. They figured out who it was. They even got in with the mayor of New Orleans. And a lot of these big, we're predominantly commercial business. We're 65% commercial. And a lot of them just take time to kind of nurture those relationships and really build. But they'll probably do that once every 3 years,
So I want to talk a little bit about the way you did your business model, right? You found this amazing business. You shared some really unique insights last time on the pod that people should go back and actually listen to around how to pick the right type of business in order to franchise. Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about just that concept in general and see what we can teach people, see what I can kind of learn about running that business model. If you run a holding company or a business with multiple entities, you should definitely listen to this. At Enduring Ventures, we have over 50 bank accounts across our different portfolio companies. Our director of finance, Nick, spends every morning going through those accounts one by one and making sure that the cash balance is where he expects it to be. This used to take him an hour or so every single day. There really wasn't an easier way to do it. Then a friend of mine introduced me to Vesto. Vesto makes it easy to connect all of your bank accounts into a simple dashboard, so you get real-time balances, transactions, and cash flow monitoring, all in one place, with just one login. So Nick got to go from checking 50 different accounts to just checking one account and one dashboard every single day. A job that used to take Nick almost an hour every day now takes him just a couple minutes or less. If you're managing multiple bank accounts, Vesto is a no-brainer. Go to vesto.com, tell them that Sieva sent you, and you'll get to speak directly to the founder, Ben.
There's this big push. Everyone knows entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA. As you know, that's like a massive, there's books written on it. What there's not books written on, and what's not talked about, is franchise through acquisition, or even entrepreneurship through franchising. So what I did is I essentially said, hey, I'm looking for a great business that I could replicate in every market by finding great franchisees to run that. And instead of acquiring that business, that founder now leaves, and now I'm running a $2 million power washing business. I'm saying, hey, keep running your great $2 million power washing business. Let's create another business, the franchise business. And we're gonna give you upside in this brand new business that you didn't have before because you've built this great business. I need your help making sure that we can transfer the knowledge that you have sufficiently. So let's partner in this new business. That new business acquires the systems, processes, rights, trademarks, anything that has or will be created by that business. And now we're a franchisor. And so now we are in the business of helping people start businesses. And that's what a franchisor is a conduit to someone starting a business faster and theoretically with less risk than going to try to do it on their own. So we then spend time finding suppliers to help with marketing, insurance, recruiting, really every kind of like back-end support structure that we need, technology, payroll. All of those suppliers and those relationships were created prior to us launching. So the franchisee who buys into Rolling Suds now has all of these systems and processes, and all they have to do is come in and execute and say, give me the playbook, let me run with it. Which honestly is pretty similar to the thought process around buying an existing business. It's already all up and running. There's systems and processes in place. They're trying to buy all of that so that they can then come in and just execute. So the type of buyer for entrepreneurship through acquisition versus like what I would call entrepreneurship through franchising is the same. But what I did is basically said, let's create this new business. And I think that's a killer opportunity too, because as you know, a lot of these businesses that are run by 55, 65-year-old people aren't underwritable because they're running their boat and their second home and their insurance and like everything through it. So they're not even going to get the multiple that they want for their business anyway. So, hey, keep running your business. It's a great business. Let's create this new one. That person now can get upside, and we're creating opportunities for hundreds of franchisees across the country.
What are some brands or businesses that either you look up to that have done something similar?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is kind of replicate the 1-800-GOT-JUNK model. So basically, in the early 2000s, 1-800, there was no junk sophistication. The junk business was just a dude that put junk in the back of his truck and took it to and then they basically came in. They had a great business in Canada and said, let's franchise this in the U.S. Brian Scudamore comes down, doesn't know anything about franchising, but knows that he's got a great model.
That's just his business or somebody else?
It was his business.
He started the business.
He started the business. It was a college junk business that he started in Canada, and he's like, I think I have something special. I'm going to come down to the U.S. and franchise it. They basically paved the way for college hunks hauling junk, Junk King, Junk Luggers, J-Dog Junk, Junk Co. Like all the brands that you now know in the junk business, they were first to market in the franchise space. And every industry in the home services or residential commercial services space will have, or already does have, an 800-pound gorilla franchisor that has come in and provided some level of sophistication and standardization that then sophisticates that model. It happened in pest in 2013, pest control, and then obviously on the like private equity side, you've seen it with like HVAC and electric, and now roofing as like these roll-ups. So basically, there's institutional capital or institutional people and brands that basically set standards in different industries. That had not been done yet in the power washing industry prior to Rolling Suds. So we're currently doing in the power washing industry what 1-800 got jumped into the junk business in the early 2000s. And people will try to follow behind. It's inevitable. I've seen this. I've seen this movie play out. However, we have proprietary tech. We have proprietary trucks that allow us to do jobs considerably faster and more effectively. We build these trucks for our franchisees. So there's a moat for what we're doing, and we'll already have 400 units and already have captured significant market share.
Yeah, is that why it's important to go fast? You're sprinting,
Well, also just the franchise business model relies upon royalties. Mm-hmm. And if we want to get into the weeds about the business model, you basically as a franchisor invest a significant amount of money on the front end to build teams to support franchisees, and then you select the right franchisees, and then they have to get up to enough revenue to make the front end investment worth it. And most franchisors are going to be burning cash for quite some time, because let's say they pay us a $55,000 franchise fee, we have to pay acquisition costs for, just like any other business has to pay cost to acquire customers. Ours is just cost to acquire a franchisee, and that's pretty significant. Now, fortunately, due to a lot of the content that we put out, we've decreased our cost to acquire a franchisee pretty considerably, but most franchisors are almost paying most of that first initial franchise fee out in acquisition costs. Especially if they're outsourcing their franchise sales to a different company, it's they might be losing money. So what that means is you have to have millions of dollars ready to go in order to support franchise owners and get them open and then to profitability. So let's say it takes someone 6 to 12 months to get profitable in a concept. That means that you need to have the people as a franchisor to support that entire time, to make sure that it works. And then really you need $50 million in system-wide sales to get to what we call in the franchise industry royalty self-sufficiency, where the cost of the infrastructure to support the franchise is less than what the royalties generate. Mm-hmm. And so ours is 8% royalty, 2% brand fund, so that's 10%. So we really need to get up to that point, because it costs significantly more to support that system than it does to get it there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I imagine if you guys have if you're a successful franchisor, you have some profitability graph where you're starting way negative, you're staffing up this whole team, you're building the systems, the training, you're doing the marketing, you've got this expensive brand, because your brand looks beautiful. I was imagining I spent a lot of money on that. You start kind of below the x-axis, deep below, and then hopefully at some point you hit the break even as you get more and more franchisors who are making more and more money, and then hopefully you're in the profitability.
Yeah, more and more franchisees. You need the right need the right franchisees to come in, because they're relying on us to support them, and we're relying on them to go out and execute and run the model and run the play. And you need each other. Franchisors and franchisees need each other, and they need to have a great relationship, because ultimately they're signing a 10-year contract to grow that business during that time. And so we need to provide the systems, processes, and tools that allow them to get there. But it's we raised a significant amount of capital. Last year I built a full-blown executive team. So I brought in leaders who have done this before. So we have a CMO, we have a Chief Development Officer, we have a CFO, we have a brand president who's effectively he handles all franchisee communication. The whole executive team rolls up to him. We have a VP of franchisee success. I believe that in order to get to 400 units within the first 3-4 years and get them all open, you need people who have done it before. And fortunately, due to a lot of the involvement I have in the franchise industry, we've been able to put this killer team together. Mm-hmm. Most franchisors can't attract that level of talent, right, especially not this early, because it's too risky for a $250,000 a year person to leave a very safe job and jump into something else. And we've been able to do that multiple times over, just due to our kind of track record and what we've done in this space.
Who's making all the training materials for you guys? So you found this awesome business, and I'm sure they had some processes and systems, but it's very different when you're trying to teach someone from scratch who's never power washed a building before.
So I spent 4 months basically working with them to dumb down their, like our founding location, dumb down their process to like its most simplistic parts. So I'm sitting there with them for hours asking them questions about, all right, well, what do you do here? What does this piece of equipment do? Okay, how much is this piece of equipment? Like, I need to know where we can buy it from. I need a package of like what franchisees need to buy at signing. I need to know how much it is. I need to build that into the cost. I need to build that into the model to make sure that they can get an R. Like, it's literally breaking down the business to the most simplistic parts, and then creating training materials around that. And there were multiple times where the founders were like, why do we have to go this detailed? You're making it so easy for them. I'm like, because that's what a franchisor does.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you just go sell. And I'm like, no, you'd like need a process, and you need to like know what to say and like what questions you're gonna ask. And they're like, well, we just do it. And I'm like, I know, you have a great business, but now we need to distill it down to its most simplistic parts. And then we basically create all the trainings. We create videos, we create written, we create all that, and then we house it in kind of a CRM where franchisees will just consume it in the form of kind of an operating manual.
And then you guys have some kind of software that you encourage or mandate your franchisees to use? Mandate.
Okay. Yeah. It allows us to basically track everything, make sure that we're able to provide the support necessary, and then we have a bookkeeping company that does their books for them. So ultimately, like, we're able to coach them on profitability, we're able to coach them on sales, we're able to coach them on KPIs, we're able to coach them on all of that stuff because we have it all kind of centralized in one space, in one spot.
I've seen a number of these large home service companies, and we even have a home service business ourselves, and there's these roll-ups going on. They find like the best HVAC company in like Bentonville, Arkansas or something, and they buy it. Maybe it has like 100 employees or so. What is kind of wild about all of those acquisitions is that the systems and processes are all different. Every time they buy a business, it's just totally ground up different.
Yeah.
And to me, like, the franchisor model makes a lot of sense, or some sort of something that looks like it, because like you have standardized processes, you have standardized systems.
Right.
It feels like you're creating more streamlined value as you actually grow the business than you are trying to get everyone on a new system, because I've done that before. It's painful.
It's painful. Well, you have to basically go in reverse. Like, the business is, I'm assuming in that, like, the business is humming in this direction, and in order to get it all on the same process as all the other brands you guys are buying or whatever it is, you have to like reverse and say, okay, we're going to change your technology piece here. We're going to get everyone on ServiceTitan, and they're like, whatever. And they're like, well, we're doing it this way. And it's like working. And you're like, no, but I need to change it. Whereas with a franchisor and with franchisees, like, they're starting from scratch, but not necessarily from scratch, because like we've already got these processes in place, but like everything is standardized all the way up.
Yeah.
Same technology, same marketing suppliers, same bookkeeping, same chart of accounts, all that kind of stuff. And so basically that allows us to say, all right, here's exactly what works. We're looking at 77 different franchisees across the country, and we can look and say, hey, this is benchmark, this is what's great, this is you're below benchmark, like, and we can kind of coach around that.
That's really powerful. As an outsider, I was pretty naive when I bought my first home service business.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a tech guy. I come from San Francisco.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, great. Like, we'll just install ServiceTitan. It's the user experience is wonderful. It is a great software.
It's great software.
And like, all the techs are just going to use it. No big deal. And, we have these some amazing techs who've been doing it for like 15 to 25 years. They're on site. They're like, how do I take a picture? How do I send an email? Like, how do I push this button? And they're like really frustrated. And, for me, I just didn't understand the gap between like, I'm someone who can just open the app and like I have that experience, and adding a new software, a new technology for these guys, it was just a much bigger hurdle than I ever anticipated.
Well, it also slows them down. They don't want to slow down, which if they're slowing down, that means they're less efficient, which means the business is going to take a dip. So you're investing money in trying to get them to change. The business is now taking a dip because they're less efficient. And you're like, oh wow, like all these other, if you've got a bunch of brands you're rolling up, like all of them got to work together to make this make sense.
Yeah, I like that what you talked about, where you have the same system so you can compare territories, right? You can say, hey, you're below threshold, so why don't we send someone in to maybe train you up or fix up how you're doing, like maybe a sales process. What are some brands, or what are some like services that you've seen out in the world? I'm sure like you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw a bunch of different things before you decided
Yep.
to do Rolling Suds. What are some things that you've seen that you think to yourself, wow, like if I wasn't doing this, like I think this should exist, or I would love to do this?
So I think in general, there's a space right now for commercial services. So like, there's a lot of home service platforms. There's Neighborly, there's Belfour Franchise Group, which is where I worked. There's Authority Brands, and like they're very heavy focused on like residential services. There may be 15 to 20% on average, let's say, of their business might be commercial. However, like when you think about kind of professionalizing services like I talked about with power washing, you can really professionalize commercial services as well. It's great if you could do both residential and commercial, which is what we do, but like commercial is obviously where you build like a pretty sizable business. And so I think in general, like there's an opportunity for platforms in the franchise community to lean in hard on commercial services. And that could be like hardscaping, that could be commercial landscaping, it could be septic, it could be street sweeping. Like there's a ton of opportunity to like really take some commercial services, some B2B services, and invest like a pretty significant amount of money to build systems on a platform level that provide services to franchise owners. And like Rolling Suds could potentially be the kind of whatever, the hub or the spoke, or I guess it would be the hub of a potential platform like that. I mean, we're heads down making sure our franchisees do as best as they possibly can, and we can provide the best support. But like, really, there's a ton of opportunity. I think on Angie's list there's like 465 home service like industries, and there's certainly not 465 brands times, let's say 3 to 6 brands per industry. So there's a lot of opportunity just in the residential and commercial services space still, just to be professionalized in general.
Really interesting. So I think what I hear you saying is Rolling Suds is developing this specialty, creating a commercial focused customer base in power washing.
Yeah.
But there may be a future where you've taken some of these learnings of how to build a franchise around commercial services, and you may say, okay, let's do landscaping, let's do street sweeping, let's do septic. And because of that kind of like infrastructure backbone that you guys, I'm sure a lot of it is like same technology, similar sales processes, right? Like same way to find franchisees and make sure we have the right people.
Yep.
That's really cool. I think that's really interesting. What would you guess it would be a timeline of
I don't really have. I mean, my understanding of like everything I've read and watched is that like as entrepreneurs we get distracted very easily, and we start to like
guilty.
Yeah, right. Me too. Like I'm like, I have all these ideas, right? But like Alex Hormozi talks about this, like the growth isn't in like the new opportunities; it's in like the problems. It's so difficult to become exceptional at one thing, and so imagine like, I'm trying to be exceptional at like 40 things, right? And building a franchisor is, I don't know if it's more difficult, but I would probably say it's one of the hardest businesses to build. Like it's hard to start one business. It's much harder to start a business that starts 70 businesses, right? And ultimately the franchisees are starting the businesses, but like we're supporting them, we're helping them get open, we're helping them get jobs, like we're coaching them, we're teaching them how to like, and so that whole thing, like
you're super incentive aligned.
Very incentive aligned.
You really need these people to be very successful.
I need them to be successful. My business model does not work without franchisees out there driving the business every single day. And so there's coaching, there's motivation, there's all this stuff. And so taking your eye off the ball too soon means that the franchisees who made the investment might not get the support they're looking for. And you see this happen a lot in our industry. Like someone just says, all right, cool, we've got 200 units sold, now we're going to go sell 200 of this other brand because the brokers that we're working with, we need to continue to have them send us leads, and Austin is sold out and Nashville's sold out, and so we need to come up with another concept to keep the franchise brokers engaged. Like, there's kind of this like rat race piece of it, and for us, like, we're just like relentlessly focused on execution right now. And like, we're about to go into the busiest season for us for the year, which is the residential power washing season, which is like March to July, and it's gonna be like slammed for everyone, franchisees, my team, like everyone. And so I am leading through leaders at this point, but there's always more that you can do in a business, like to get it to the next level. And like, the business needs a different version of me at the different times that the business evolves. Like a year ago, I was still doing sales. Now I'm like leading a C-suite. It's like a very different roles and responsibilities. And the business will likely need something different from me 12 months from now. And so my focus is on evolving with the business and making sure that I can continue to provide the support and not take my eye off the ball. So.
So I'm curious from a business owner's perspective. Say I have a wonderful business. It's doing, $2-3 million of profit per year. I've been running it for 20 years. And a nice gentleman named Eric shows up and says, "Hey, I want to franchise your business." Like, what? Thinking of it from the owner's perspective. I mean, you obviously had a wonderful pedigree. Like, right. You could point to your background and say, "Look, I've done this multiple times.
Yeah.
I think I'm the right person." I probably would have picked you to do that for my business. So, but from an owner's perspective, I'm sure they get asked that a number of times if somebody hears about their business.
Yeah.
How would you make the decision? What are some qualities that the owner should be looking for?
Have they done it before? Have they done it before? Do they have the relationships? Have they sold franchises before? What's their experience in franchising? And if the person they're coming to doesn't have that, they shouldn't do it with them. Mm-hmm. Because what they could do is go to a conference like the IFA where I was just at, talk to someone like me and say, who should I hire? And then I could be like, hey, there's a ton of great operations people in the franchise industry that are looking for a home. You could pay someone $150 to $200 a year, give them some upside and growth. Then that de-risks the opportunity for this person who's running a great business that's generating $2 to $3 million a year, because he doesn't want to take his eye off the ball. Mm-hmm. And now, like, his business decreases in size. But like I've said this before, I'll say it again, I don't think anyone should be growing at the pace that we've grown without the experience in franchising. Even with the experience that we have, even with the leaders that we have in the different departments, like, it's still really hard. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this before, right? And so, like, there's a lot of people who hear these like big multiples and they hear these big things and they're like, I'm going to franchise, I'm going to sell 100 units and then I'm just going to sell it. And it's like, no, like, we're setting people up and they're investing a good portion of their life savings and all of their time. And like, you just need the systems and processes to do that. And so I would also say that that person shouldn't franchise unless they have at least $1 million
in profit.
No. In a bank account.
Yeah.
Like, and if it takes a year or 18 months to get a unit open, let's just say it's like a youth enrichment concept that has a build out and like they need a lease and all that, and it takes maybe 12 to 18 months. Like, they're going to need significantly more. Yeah. Because if they sell 15 franchisees who each buy 2 to 3 units, let's say, in the first year, well, now they're going to need to support those 15 franchisees for the next 18 months before they're generating revenue, and then another 6 months before that revenue is meaningful enough to make any difference. So now you're talking about infrastructure for 2.5 years before you reach any kind of royalties, right? So I think that if more people knew that they need millions of dollars and all their time, and like, they would probably not franchise their business, which would be great. Most people shouldn't. However, like, when you can create a great franchise brand and people can come in and do $40,000 their first month, or get $100,000 in recurring revenue their first 6 months, and like do the Superdome 9 months into operation, like do a 200, like all these different jobs that they are able to do, they would never have been able to do without a Rolling Suds or without a concept like that. And so they can really skip a ton of steps, but the franchisor has to be able to provide the support necessary and take candidly the risk of investing all of that money and making sure that they can get up to that.
That's really one of those things that you mentioned is an interesting qualifier. It is how fast can you get ramped up as a franchisee after you've started after you've bought the franchise.
Yeah.
And that matters a lot, it seems like, because if you can get ramped up in 3 months or 6 months, it's very different than if it takes like a year and a half to get there. What you mentioned for the owner to look out and see that, hey, has this person really done it before? Are there specific criteria that you would look for as the it factor?
Yeah. So I think there's two pieces that the business really needs, the franchisor really needs. They need the operational expertise on how to support, train, and get franchisees to a revenue number that makes sense or a profitability number that makes sense. And then you need someone who can sell franchises or award franchises is what people say. So basically recruit franchisees. And the recruiting new franchise owners is probably not too far away from like angel investing. Like you're telling them like, hey, we want you to come run this business. There's no franchisees.
Yeah, you're the first.
You're going to be the first. Yeah. But like, I promise you, like, I've analyzed this other model. I know it's replicable. Yeah. Here's my pedigree in the background, and then that person's going to come in and invest $200,000-$300,000 and all of their time. Like, you need to have at the very least a high level ops person and a high level franchise salesperson. And so you're looking basically at, let's say this business owner is doing $2 million a year. Like, you need to look to say, hey, if I'm going to pay these people this amount of money and I'm going to potentially give them upside or whatever it is, like, have they done those things before? And also, are they trustworthy? And who's worked with them in the past? And can I call and work with them? Like, the Rolling Suds guys called like multiple franchisees that I had signed up of other brands to talk to them before. And I told them to do that. Yeah. I was like, you need to make sure, like, this is your family business that's 34 years old. Like, I want to honor your brand and I'm going to do it, but you need to make sure that the people I've worked with in the past will vouch for me. And so they did their diligence. And so I would highly recommend that whoever it is that wants to franchise their business finds someone who's done it before and pays them whatever they need to be paid in order to make it work.
Yeah. How do you, like, is there a way to motivate or kind of incentivize the early franchisees to take the risk? Is there like a financial incentive that people provide?
I'll tell you what we did. We basically, for the first year, sold territories for under market at $39,900. And then...
What's $39,900?
I'm sorry, $39,900.
Okay.
$900. Franchise fees are between $50,000 to $60,000 for meaning your territory that you buy. And then that's a territory that's like a protected territory that no one else can go in, that you can develop and add as many trucks in as you want. So a year later, it went up to $54,900. And so then I called all the franchisees that were already signed up and I said, listen, hey, I know you guys bought territories already. As I promised, these are going up a year later. We're going to offer you guys to buy at least one more if you want to. And we had 26 expansions from existing franchisees in a month. And so they basically got an immediate increase in value. If they bought 3 territories, now they just got a $45,000 appreciation on their asset within the first year of owning it.
What's been harder than you expected over the last year?
So I'll tell you, I had to learn in the last 2 years, because we took the brand to market 2 years ago, how to be a CEO. And I think like being a founder and being like a CEO are 2 different things. Like I can found a business, I can start it from scratch, I can spark things together and come up with logos and colors and stuff like that. But like at a certain stage, the business needs like a CEO that can lead leaders and lead through leaders. And I had never done that before. And so last year, we outgrew some key employees because the business grew fast, and that's what happens when a business grows fast. And we needed to replace them with people who have done this before. The business needs at the beginning, generalists, people who can do IT and HR and also the marketing, right? And then a business reaches a certain size, somewhere in the 5 to 10 million range, and they need specialists. And then eventually the business gets so big that the specialists just run the company. And so I basically stepped out of sales, which was driving revenue, built a sales team, took them time to ramp up. So that means we were burning cash. And then I hired people in those roles that have done this before. And now I provide them the resources that they need to do their jobs. And then I get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And that was very hard for me.
Do you still want to pick up the phone and sell?
No. At this point, so I actually made a pretty big bet. I was like, it was a calculated bet. But I was like, if I step out of sales and I hire this great team and I spend a lot more time creating content, I think that we'll be able to decrease our cost to acquire a franchisee via organic just reach. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what happened. And nobody thought it was a good idea. Everyone was like, you create content. Sure. If you don't understand content creation and personal branding, people are like, oh, Aaron's just out there making himself look good. Right. And it's like, we generated 42% of our franchise sales revenue via content.
Amazing.
Which is insane.
Is there any particular medium that's driving more?
Twitter and LinkedIn. Yeah, that's where our buyers are. We're attracting high level, ETA in our age range, higher net worth, higher risk tolerance, professionals, and that kind of 27 to 26 to 48-year-old range. We've signed up people older than that and even people younger than that, but that's kind of where that ideal customer profile, that ideal franchisee profile, that's where they live and that's where they spend time. So I spend a lot of time on those two. I write everything myself, so there's no kind of outsourced writer. And then we basically take what I write and we record it as well, so that we do video. And we put about 15 pieces of content out per day.
Okay, wow. You guys are cranking.
Yeah.
That's cool. So do you have an editing team or you have a production team or something like that full-time?
So I have two kind of part-time editors. Yeah. I have a content strategist who he's actually one of my best friends. We've known each other since 6th grade. He was in my wedding. So he's kind of helps make sure that my personal brand is aligned with that the stuff I write and put out is aligned with what we're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And then we hired kind of a director of franchise sales marketing, essentially, so that we can keep our CMO focused on franchisee consumer marketing. So this guy's basically building the whole kind of lead funnel on the back end, so that we could track opt-ins. We're launching a newsletter, which I love your newsletter, by the way. Nice. I read it all the time. We're going to launch a podcast. We've recorded the first few episodes. And so this will kind of really organize all of the personal branding stuff that we're doing, which last year was just Aaron puts out content.
Sure.
And hopefully people
somebody DMs.
Yeah.
Great. Fish on. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully it works out. So now we'll be able to kind of track it all.
Okay. That's great. I'm definitely, I'm still in the DM phase.
Yeah.
I get a bunch of DMs every day, and 2 out of 10 of them are very valuable.
Yeah.
And, I do something or I give it to someone and then we move on. But eventually, I probably need someone to organize it like you're doing.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. It's really hard to scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you know about, you mentioned Cody Sanchez earlier. I saw she invested in Pink's, I think it's called Pink's franchise?
It's called, Resi Brands. So it's a portfolio of service brands that focus on residential services.
Okay.
And what were you going to say?
I was just curious, what do you know about that, company or investment? I've never heard of them before.
So Stephen Montgomery is actually a buddy of mine. Okay. He's the founder of That One Painter. That One Painter essentially became the hub for the spokes of Pink's and some of these other brands. And then they formed Resi Brands, which is a portfolio of residential service companies. I think they do 80 million in system-wide sales, 80 or 90 million.
That's great.
I'm not sure. They might have crossed 100 last year. Cody has this whole audience of people that want to buy businesses. And most people don't buy a business because they can't find it, or they can't finance it, or it's not the right one, or it's scary, or it's too much debt, or whatever. And so kind of finding the right franchise brand provides a bridge to entrepreneurship that may be less scary than buying an existing business that's doing $1 million in SDE, and now they got to pay $4 million for it, and now they have all this debt and they're super high leveraged. Whereas they could buy a Rolling Suds, or they could buy That One Painter or a Pinks and invest $200 to $250,000 and have full control over that growth from the beginning. And so she was able to basically leverage her audience to capture and invest in Resi brands as a platform. And That One Painter is pretty much all sold out at this point, from my understanding. But Pinks and some of the other brands that they've launched are newer, and they're just kind of replicating the same thing there. But it was really cool to see her get into franchising. I think in general, we need more. We need an audience that's a younger generation that understands what a franchisor is, what a franchisee is, and I think her just getting involved and talking about it almost normalizes a little bit, and opens up the doors, oh, it's not just fast food, or oh, it's not a Ponzi scheme, oh, it's a great opportunity to build wealth. And she recognized that, and she was able to use her audience to kind of get that.
It seems great, and I think awesome, man. This was so great. Thank you for making it rain.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
This is great content. I'm sure a lot of people really appreciate it. What's a good way to catch up with you and to follow along with everything you're doing?
Yeah, Twitter, X, Aaron Harper, CEO. That's my handle. I also put stuff out on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn. It's all me. I write it all. So we kind of just I share the wins and losses of growing the biggest power washing brand in the world. So.
Okay. Fun, man. It's been fun watching what you're doing. I'm excited for the next couple of years too.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.